Welcome to this webinar. Today I'm going to talk about the future of content management and a bit about the history of content as well. My name's Lee and I'm the Head of Engineering here at Distinction. Let's start the journey by looking at the history of content. In the 80s, most people got their daily dose of content from radio, newspapers, and towards the end of the 80s, TV. That's not to say there wasn't any digital content back then. We had very basic web pages, normally one or two pages linked together. We had bulletin board systems, and we had Internet Relay Chat, or IRC, which was an internet chat system. Moving into the 90s, instant messaging platforms really became popular, and ICQ and MSN really took the top spots on that. We began to see businesses creating more coherent websites, collections of pages linked together through coherent navigation. And in 1995, Amazon launched the first successful online storefront. 95 also saw the beginnings of search engines such as Alta Vista, Hotbot and Ask Jeeves. And in 1998, Google launched its search engine and very quickly took the top spot in that industry. The main source of content throughout the 90s was TV, and search engines towards the end and the web coming in a strong second place. By 2000, internet savvy customers were just starting to communicate more widely using these up and coming instant messaging apps. And going into the 2000s, we started to see the rise of social networks, such as MySpace, which launched in 2003. Facebook in 2004, YouTube in 2005, and Twitter in 2006. Also in 2006, Amazon launched the first cloud platform, AWS. And then in 2007, something amazing happened. Apple released the iPhone. This was the first mobile device that everyday consumers could afford, that they could use to browse the web and access all of their digital content, from social media to videos to instant messaging apps and web pages and websites, all in one place, right in their pocket. And then in 2008, Netflix launched its online streaming platform. By the end of the 2000s, content consumption had shifted far more into the digital space, with many people getting their content from social media sites like Facebook and Twitter. The Internet World stats show us that at the end of the 90s, the internet was used by around 248 million people worldwide, just over 4% of the world's population. By the end of the 2000s, that number had grown to over 1.8 billion. That's 26% of the world's population. In the 2010s, the social media platforms of the previous decade became the platform for both marketers and a place where customers could share their experiences of different companies. And by the end of the 2010s, we were up to 4.5 billion people, over 58% of the world's population using the internet on a daily basis. So where are we now? By 2020, companies found that they could no longer control the narrative of their brand as easily as they could in past decades, thanks to the proliferation of user and customer created content and the growth of influencers on social media platforms. Today, over 70% of the world's population uses the internet on a daily basis, and it's become clear that the only way to achieve a real and lasting success in this market and in marketing in general is through customer advocacy. This means a great need to control what customers read, watch and hear about your business, and to provide unified and consistent messaging across all channels. It demands new marketing strategies that include influencers, social media, and an omni-channel approach to content publication. Digital content has transitioned from being a digital presence or a company website to needing a whole new approach that encapsulates multiple channels and multiple mediums. In the early days of digital content, there was no such thing as a content management system or CMS. Many businesses had their first websites handcrafted and statically hosted. Content management systems didn't really start popping up until the mid-90s, and these were what we would now call a traditional or monolithic CMS. This traditional CMS is probably the type that most of you are already familiar with. In a traditional CMS, the editor interface and the website that your visitor sees are usually powered by the same application and are typically located on the same web hosting. Enterprise content management systems often include features like workflow to allow an approval process before publishing, or content staging to be able to deploy test versions of content for stakeholder approval. But most traditional content management systems are managed by individuals or small teams, marketing team for example, and they typically reside within a single department. Often different departments will use different content management systems depending on their needs. Marketing, customer support, IT and other departments all manage content in some form, mostly for different audiences, but there is some overlap. Having your website content and your support desk content both managed from the same CMS can be extremely powerful though. Having the marketing and support teams collaborating on that content is even more so, because it means you can ensure a consistent and unified messaging across both channels, joining up your customer journey in such a way that your prospects don't get confused by different messaging or tone when they become a customer. And this can take your customer experience to a whole new level. You can do this manually across different departments and systems, but this adds additional complexity and overhead when a single system could do the job and help to break down communication barriers between departments. In the early to mid 2000s, we started to see website builders appear, touting a fully managed solution to building a website that no longer required developer or designer involvement. This was very appealing to smaller businesses who couldn't always afford to hire professionals and wanted something they could create or manage themselves easily. And it quickly became apparent to larger businesses that these website builders' cookie-cutter designs and limited branding capabilities just weren't going to help them differentiate themselves in the market. But they do remain popular with small businesses to this day. Typically in these systems, content editors would log into the website builder's platform, make their changes in some kind of WYSIWYG style editor, and the website that your visitors see would be hosted in that same platform, and it would share many of the same components, which made them quite clunky and slow. Website builders are typically only deal with websites as well, so they can't really be used to manage content for other channels or platforms easily. And as I mentioned earlier, they're often best suited to small businesses, but they can be useful for startups, especially those that they need to get something up quickly to capture market feedback or prove a theory before committing to a larger build, or maybe just to gather data that they can present to their investors to get greater levels of investment. Headless content management systems are really the new kid on the block. At the simplest, they separate the management of content from how that content is delivered to your customers. So this adds a lot of possibilities for omni-channel content right off the bat. But it's also given rise to another new technology, or rather an old technology reimagined, static site generators. The website that your visitors see can be decentralized using a content delivery network, which allows super fast loading of pages anywhere in the world without needing a massive investment in infrastructure. Combining a headless CMS with a static site generator for your website gives you an amazing level of scalability as well, and the ability to more effectively reach that global audience. Headless means that you can use any tech stack for your website. You're not tied to the same stack that the CMS uses, and this can mean that hiring developers is much easier. It also means that your content is decoupled from the look and feel of your website, allowing the website to be redesigned or rebranded. The tech you've used can be changed out easily, all without needing to change the whole CMS. And there are no upgrades for the CMS either, because it's hosted and maintained by the CMS provider. On top of all that, a headless CMS can be used to feed content to more channels than just your website. Whether you're communicating with your customers, potential customers, or anyone else through any medium such as a website, help desk, mobile app, voice assistant, or anything else that the future might throw at you. Headless allows you to manage that communication, content, and your brand tone of voice all in one place. It allows you to have your teams collaborate effectively on your content, giving you consistent and unified messaging across all departments, platforms, and mediums. And while you can achieve some of this with some enterprise level traditional content management systems, a headless content management system often places greater emphasis on collaboration within teams, and they tend to offer the tools and features that aid in that collaboration. For that reason, headless is typically better for businesses that want to unify their messaging, improve the control of their content across multiple channels and departments, and where they might need a multi-step or multi-person approval process. So where's the content management industry heading then? I think we've covered a lot here so far, and I think you probably can guess where I'm heading with this. For true omni-channel support and the focus that it brings to organisational collaborative content creation, and to ensure your company speaks with one voice and provides consistent messaging across all channels, present and future, the future's headless. So in this webinar, we've talked about the past 40 years of content. We've looked at the current state of play for the content management industry and the different types of content management systems available today. We've concluded that given the changing nature of content and the channels and mediums through which it's consumed, the future of content can only be headless. I hope you found this webinar useful, and if you'd like to explore your CMS options in more detail, please feel free to get in touch for a free consultation.